All right, you are live.
Great. Welcome, everyone, to the February meeting, February 22nd of the Annapolis Education Commission. My name is Janet Norman, and I'm the chair for this school year. We are recording this session for participants to view later, and we welcome public input. If you are viewing this session and you wish to contribute, please let us know. But we welcome our commissioners and our guests. I'm going to go around with the roll call first of all, and we'll record whether we have quorum present. Ward 1.
Hi, I'm Rachel Carr from Ward 1.
Great, thank you, Rachel. Ward 2.
Hi, Jamie Weaver, Ward 2.
Okay, Ward 3.
Enid Collison Lee, Ward 3.
Thank you. Ward 4 is a currently vacant position, and our Alderwoman Finlayson might not be on right now. We'll see if she's available later. Ward 5.
India Oaks, Ward 5.
Thank you, India. Ward 6.
Corey Mackel, Ward 6.
Thank you, Corey. Ward 7.
Laura Booth, Ward 7.
Great. Ward 8 is Jess Packler, and she might be joining us later. I am an at-large member. Other members at large, Odessa Ellis. Can you turn on your speaker and let us know you're here, Odessa?
Odessa Ellis at large.
Thank you. And is there anybody I missed? I think that, and then we're going to introduce our guest for this evening. We have a guest, our executive director from Seeds for Success.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me tonight.
Okay, that's Jen Pastrone.
Jen Pastrone from Seeds for Success. Sorry, it's hard when your name's also in the title to introduce yourself again. Jen Pastrone, Seeds for Success. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So we do have a quorum present. We're going to move forward there's approval of the agenda. What I propose is that I'm going to move the discussion on school club opportunities, that's number 6, to later in the discussion, because that was initiated by Jess Packler, and it'd be great if she was here for that discussion. So I'm going to move that down right before 12, unfinished business. Otherwise, can I get a show of hands for approving the agenda? So moved. Agenda is approved. We have our minutes from the January 25th, 2023 meeting that we held. They were distributed to the commission. Thank you, Dr. Carr, for taking those very detailed minutes. That was awesome. Does anyone have any revisions they need to propose to the minutes? Okay, hearing none. Could I get a motion to adopt those minutes, or would people need more time to absorb them and postpone that?
I'll move to adopt the minutes as presented.
Okay, any second? We would need a second to
Second. I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Corey. We have a second. All in favor, please raise your hand or say aye. Thank you.
Aye.
Okay. We have a motion to pass the adoption of the minutes. Do we have any, and Madeline from the city staff is here to assist us in conducting this online Zoom meeting. Madeline, do we have anybody else who has tried to register for public testimony?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. So we do not have any public testimony at this time. If someone comes on later in the session, we welcome sharing some time with them to let them contribute to our meeting. I'm going to move straight in. So my intention for this February session is more of a kind of loose brainstorming session. There's been a lot that's gone on with Dr. Bedell's listening sessions, with the county executive and county council budget hearing town halls. There's just a lot going on in our schools with the start of the second semester. So I want to use this as just an open exchange of what's going on, what we can contribute to, and what you want to advertise to people and your thoughts. So it's going to be a little more free flow, and we're going to give Jen Seeds for Success time to talk about, their perspectives from an on the ground mentoring achievement provider for our students. But feel free to jump in because it's not as structured as some of our other meetings. It's going to be looser for that. And if I start coughing and have to run away, I'm turning it over to our Vice President, Vice Chair, Laura Booth. So first, we're going to start with high school club funding. If any of you have been on the Annapolis High School.org webpage, which is an awesome source of information, there's a listing under the student category of all the clubs available to school. And the Annapolis High PTSA did a big push with students and parents working at the Washington Commanders football games, and raised a lovely chunk of money to be able to fund student clubs. And the PTA just gave out those grants, awarded them to the teachers last night. So an additional, I think it was an additional $3,000 worth of grants was handed out last night. But they had applications that totaled $15,000. So there is outstanding need. So last night they gave out $3,000 in grants from a previous $10,000 grant that Annapolis High PTSA had gotten. They gave out $5,700 in November. So $8,700 so far to the Annapolis High clubs and to the Annapolis High teachers. Things like the Trauma Informed Leadership Group, the Panther Pantry, the Sewing Club, the band, the ESOL Mentors program for field trips, I'm probably not pronouncing this right, Exante Girls Character Club. So just a huge number of really worthy activities at the high school level that we want to keep funding and keep our students engaged with. So PTSA is looking for additional fundraiser opportunities. They're having a Chipotle night, March 1st, 4 to 8 p.m., where they get 33% of the revenues. So most teenagers enjoy Chipotle. So if you know,
33%. It's the best fundraiser that Bates did all year. So
yeah,
thank you, Chipotle. Eat Chipotle.
Chipotle has been a really great community partner, and we super appreciate that. So Annapolis High is doing theirs on March 1st from 4 to 8 p.m. You do it online and stuff. And Jamie or Corey or others, if any of your schools are doing a fundraiser that you want to shout out a date and a time, we're welcome to love to hear that. I'm just telling you the things that I happen to know about. So they are looking to fund those additional. So there was $12,000 worth of grant requests from the teacher requests and the club requests. So if you have additional ideas of that, we want to get as many of those clubs well funded to encourage student engagement. We find that's really key. So Laura, are you able to bring up any of the folder I threw at you at the last moment?
Yeah, there was one document in there from Annapolis High, general information and links.
No, it's actually, it's in the AACPS presentations folder. in the
Oh, okay,
drive.
gotcha. There we go.
There's another one that says.
All right, yes, what would you like?
So if you can bring up some, I wanted to highlight some of the things that the Black Student Union is doing in Annapolis High. And Odessa, you would be so proud to see all the amazing things that the Black History Club has morphed into, as you know, with Akil Leggett Jr. and the other officers of the club have been super, super busy for Black History Month. And we want to show you some of their activities. They started out the month with a hot chocolate sale at the front of the school and really kicked things off well, and then had a Spirit Week activities. Are you able to show?
They gave me an award, I was there on.
I didn't know that. You didn't tell us.
Oh, it was advertised that they had a program on a Wednesday, I think 2 Wednesdays ago for Black History Month. And I was there, and they gave me flowers and recognized me for being a past, sponsor for the Black Student Union. So I was very, very pleased, and my flowers are still pretty.
That's awesome. Well, thank you to see what your legacy has grown into with that club.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yes,
Very
very
well.
well deserved. Mhm.
Yeah.
It's a fine group. It's a very fine group of students, and Miss McNeil is doing a wonderful job with them.
Yes, it seems like it. I'm really impressed. So if anyone wants to follow their activities, they are very active on their Instagram page. And you can see it right here. It's Annapolis.bsu, Black Student Union.
I think Dr. Bedell is going to be there this Friday, right?
Dr. Bedell is going to be there this Friday, and we have we have a post that shows that.
Oops, all right.
Okay, so these are some of the other speakers they've had. Ms. Brave Boy on February 10th. They had a weekly speaker series that the students could, they start off the month with a whole Spirit Week and HBCU Day of wearing your college colors, and really active in getting awareness and engagement for all the students within the school. Really love to see that. And then a very impressive set of speakers for speaker series each week. So I can be really proud of what they did.
Do you have more? Oh, here we go, the speaker series. There we go.
Yeah, so there's another page to that.
There we go.
Yeah. So Dr. Bedell is speaking with them this Friday, and they have a whole reservation system for students to come join.
Sorry, I'll be right back. Somebody's.
No worries. So we just wanted to share that and have you, if
Is that everything out of there?
I think that there were a few more speakers. I just wanted to show people.
1 second, let me get someone to answer my door.
Sorry.
Sorry, timing bad. I'll be right back.
Yes. So it's great to see the student groups. I know it's hard for some of the parents to keep track of the communication because it doesn't happen on the old-fashioned Facebook that some of their parents are using, but the kids are really taking ownership of the clubs and communicating with each other and organizing things through their own accord, and it's really phenomenal to see that. Another great follow when you're on Instagram is the Annapolis High School Naval Junior ROTC program. They are doing a ton under Commander Lassane. And you can really see all their activities on their Instagram feed. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. We want to keep parents in the loop. So there are 2 Facebook pages. Jamie, I'm going to go to your question right now.
Oh yeah, no, I just wanted to share that Germantown is also doing a really fun Black History event celebration on the 28th, which is this week, about like a living museum they're going to do, which is really fun. And then we also just did through community schools a couple weeks ago a trip to the museum in DC. So we're doing some stuff there too. Yeah. So that was paid for by community schools for to be able to go and see that.
What was that 5th grade got to go to?
But I think it was on a weekend. So any families that signed up in the community that were part of Germantown were able to go to that.
Wow, that is terrific.
Yeah, unfortunately we weren't able to go because we had sports, but it was a really great opportunity. People were really excited about it. They took a bus up there and everything like that, provided transportation for whatever families signed up. So
that's awesome.
Another way that community schools is like helping and doing some really fun, different projects and stuff. So
that's definitely. We appreciate hearing that, and it really does show all the great things going on in community schools. We're going to try and ask Dr. Pugh to come in sometime in one of our later meetings to expound on all those good opportunities.
I attended the Blueprint presentation that Arundel High School, I guess about 2 weeks ago, and Dr. Pugh is the county coordinator for Blueprint implementation, as well as being the director of the community schools program. And there are so many cool things that Blueprint is bringing to us, that community schools are bringing to us, that it's a huge depth of resources. And I was so excited by all the things that I heard. And I have a list of questions a mile long of like, okay, well, but what about this? And can we do that? And how can we tie these things together? So I would love to have her come back and talk to us.
Okay, great. If anyone doesn't know, Blueprint is the legislation that was passed in the prior year that required certain funding categories for education. And so if you see in the explanations that AACPS is putting out about Dr. Bedell's budget that was passed by the Board of Ed recently, it lists, so many positions required by Blueprint. So it shows you that certain funding was going to meet Blueprint requirements. And that's what Laura is talking about, the kind of the kickoff of implementing those requirements and regulations for enhanced early elementary and enhanced programs for student learning. Does anybody else have things to share from Black History Month or other activities that you know of and want to make others aware of? Okay. There were some others. Oh, Laura, you just sent something about, well, there's if you go to AnneArundelCounty.org, like African American Heritage, there's a link there on the Anne Arundel County webpage about a program.
Okay. Where is it?
AACounty.org / African American Heritage.
Oh, here we go. Let me bring this up and see if I can share this.
You're awesome. Thank you. Thank you for
Right.
trying.
Slow. And I have something else that I'm trying to bring up and I couldn't grab that in time.
You're doing great.
Not prepared here. Okay. So yeah, this is the Anne Arundel County African American Heritage History and Heritage page. And they have the Heritage Trail. They have all kinds of stuff on here.
Mm-hmm. Mhm. There were also, I went into the West Street Library, the Michael Bush West Street Library recently, and they have a whole local history room that has tremendous numbers of resources and books and stuff specific to Maryland and Annapolis history and Black history in Maryland. And I checked out a number of things that were really great to read about our situation in this county that has so much historical impact with Thurgood Marshall court cases and the precedents to Brown versus Board of Education. So I do recommend that resource in the West Street Library. Okay. We will send around any additional events that we hear of to let you know about for the continuation of African American history. I went to Mr. Carl Snowden was a speaker for the Black Student Union presentations this at Annapolis High, and he also did a presentation at the West Street Library. And as he rightfully quoted in other people, Black history is just American history. So it's not separated from, meaning it shouldn't only have 1 month of the year. So we want to have an ongoing dialogue and awareness and sharing of resources that contribute to understanding our full American history. Okay. Speaking of speakers for the Black Student Union, Dr. Bedell is going to be there this Friday. He's going to be with us for the Annapolis Education Commission on our March 29th meeting. And we are hoping to see if we can conduct that meeting in person. And I'm going to ask Ms. Jolene Davis and others if we can schedule it in one of our schools. If we're able to schedule it in Mills Parole, that would be awesome. Where Mr. Richard Rogers was our elementary principal of the year of AACPS. But what I'd like to do is start accumulating questions that you would like to bring up with Dr. Bedell. It'd be great if we can feed him some of our questions so he could come a little bit more prepared to know what we'd like to talk about. But if you want to think about what you'd like to, in questions, issues, things for him to take note of, that we need him in the Annapolis cluster to put his gaze upon. And Jen, I'm going to include you in that community of people to contribute any thoughts or ideas of what kinds of issues you'd like him to focus on in the Annapolis cluster.
Thank you. I appreciate that. He's great. Thank you.
He is great. But, we, as much as we'd love to have it a love fest, which it could turn into, I want to use the limited time we have to really press forward in issues we have in the cluster, and like, what can we restructure? What can we do better? Where do you need resources? Stuff like that. And so, I'm going to sit here in silence and let anybody else jump in with thoughts. Laura, go to you.
I just had two sort of community-ish announcements that I was going to tackle on there. If I could throw those back in. First, let me see if I can share this again. There is a talent show over at Pip Moyer, which sounded like something, sounded like fun, and it sounded like something they were promoting this at Bates, and I wanted to make sure that it's over. It's this Saturday afternoon. You can audition. Middle school and high school students, dance, dramatic arts, spoken word, instrumental vocal music, visual arts, and then the prizes range from $100 to $500. It looks like registration closes tomorrow. So if anyone is interested, there is a tiny link here at the bottom. Let me see if I can like big in this guy. Annapolis Alumni DST.org. It's looks like a really cool opportunity. And I think something that some of our kids might enjoy. So I wanted to share that. And then the other thing I wanted to share, which I've now managed to lose the link for, I think, oh no, here we go. Let's see if I can stop sharing that and start sharing this guy. Here we go. They have something now called the Family Academy, which has been launched by the Office of School and Family Partnerships. And they have courses. They have a whole plethora of courses available, and we can have somebody, might be a fun topic, to have somebody come and talk to us about the different courses. There are courses on everything from, parenting teenagers and things like that, down to how to use the Power School and Brightspace for parents, so that parents can figure out how to navigate these websites. But there is a ton of information there that I think families can really benefit by. So they are doing, they have sessions online, they have sessions that tell you how to use it. But then once you get on, there's this whole library of resources for parents and families, and anyone really involved in the community who's involved with, because it certainly takes a village to bring up our kids. So anyone who's involved with child rearing in any capacity, I think could benefit by some of these. So wanted to make sure I shared that.
That's really great. We will send around an email with this flyer and the links to our commission members, so that they have that and you can share it within your schools and within your ward.
They used to offer them individually in schools. Eastport used to have them like pre-COVID, and then a couple years before that, and they were fantastic. I found them so helpful, and so did many of the other parents that attended. So if you have the opportunity to attend, I definitely recommend it.
Great, thank you, Jess. Love to hear that. Which brings us to a similarly complicated but very useful function, which at the high school level is called Naviance. I would encourage you, Naviance now is where all the scholarship, not all, Naviance is where a large portion of scholarships are located in chronological order. So when they pop up, the students can see each of the scholarships available that they haven't missed a deadline for. But the more families we can help to understand and access Naviance, their students get a student ID and username to get on there, and then parents can have a username and use the same student ID and password to get on there. But the more people we can help train to get their way around Naviance, I really want to connect more people with the scholarship opportunities. And I'm going to mention the three scholarships that are opening. All of our state delegates and state senators have scholarship funds available to give out to their constituents within their district. So if you're in the Annapolis cluster and you're not an out of area magnet student, our Annapolis District 30 has Senator Sarah Elfreth and delegates Shanika Henson and Delegate Dana Jones. So the Delegate Henson and Sarah Elfreth, Senator Elfreth, scholarships are open, applications are open right now. They are on the high school PTSA community, the high school AHI community Facebook page that Jess Packler kindly developed to be an open resource for our families. So anybody, and these scholarships from the senator and delegates are geared toward, you have to provide a FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. which tells, like, it indicates what the degree of need is within your family income for college. So these scholarships are designed to try and help students in need most. And each senator or delegate has, up there in the $50,000 to give away to multiple students, among multiple students. So I've been on one of the selection committees before, and I really would encourage you, any students to apply for those if they are in need. And reach out. You can reach out to me at Annapolis Education Commission @gmail.com for any additional information, and I will send those links around to our commission members. But please be aware of them and encourage students to apply. So we touched upon, I'm going to item number 11. We touched upon the county executive's budget town hall meetings that occurred in January and maybe early February. I want to let you know that you can contribute comments if you weren't able to go to those meetings and testify. You can contribute comments at, if you email budget-comments@aacounty.org. That email again to send your input is budget-comments@aacounty.org. And there's a whole website of aacounty.org/yourbudget that explains sources of revenue, where, which departments it goes out to. But the more people that we have speaking up for the school budget, the better in advocating for the funds that our students need. Okay. Jess, would you like to talk about the club responses that you got from our regional superintendent, Ms. Davis, regarding your question about what resources are available at the club level and what kind of staffing?
Can you give me 1 second? I just got to my desk, so I just want to get on my regular computer and pull that up.
Sure. Why don't I, instead of throwing you into the fire, I'm gonna come back to you, and I'm gonna give Jen Pastroni time to speak about Seeds for Success work, and then we'll return to you, Jess. Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. So, welcome. Thank you for being here. And if you can just explain to our commission members and the viewing audience kind of what your organization is about and what needs you see and other insights you have.
Great. And I'll share my screen in a few minutes. But first, I want to just say thank you for having me. Amanda was supposed to join, but we actually have programs Wednesday evenings. And so I was on another meeting prior to this, so I was able to hop on. And I would also be remiss if Erin was here last time from Charting Careers. And I would also like to plug that we both need volunteers. She was kind of, sharing that they needed them, or we needed them last time. And we both still really need volunteers. So I just want to plug for Charting Careers as well. Volunteers are needed in many places. So I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. A little bit about me. I joined Seeds for Success in 2001. I came to Seeds for Success having spent bulk of my career in Washington, D.C., both in nonprofits and the charter school network. I've been a teacher myself. I've taught third grade, pre-K3, pre-K4, kindergarten. I was a vice principal. I worked in special education, and I really do honor all the work of our educators because it is such a hard job and so incredibly important in this world. So I stand on the shoulder of many giants, and I see Seeds for Success as an extension of what the school system does because our teachers do it so well. And I just also want to say thank you to the city because the city has been a great champion of Seeds for Success over the years. And a lot of what's possible is because of the city's support. So just thank you so much for continuing to support us. Thank you for having us here to hear our perspective. I apologize. I don't want to present because I'm worried that I'll present the wrong screen. So I'm just going to flip through my sides this way. You know,
That's fine. Whatever.
perfect. Fewer tech barriers. So our mission is working together as a community to provide children from low-income communities with the skills and support to achieve success in school and life. And even more, I really try to live on a daily basis that every child in Annapolis has the opportunity to build a bright future. That resonates with me. And that's something that we hope to achieve in the work that we do. Who we are as a staff, I've got a wonderful staff. I am a very blessed executive director. So I've got 2 wonderful program managers. Amanda runs our Learn program, grades K through 5. She also supports our school-based AmeriCorps Foster Grandparents program. I just got off a tutor or volunteer training, with Kayla Tucker, who was training our high school volunteers from 4:30 to 6. So we were doing that. She runs our Dream program, and that's for grades 6 through 12. Caitlin came to us as a St. John's work study intern and then became our full-time volunteer coordinator, has done a great job to build out our volunteer recruitment pathways. Milagros is one of my favorite positions in that it grew out of the need of our kids, right? We leverage what our families need and it blossoms in what we're able to offer. And so Milagros came on board around the same time I did, not a few months after, as a bilingual Spanish speaking volunteer. We noticed as a nonprofit, I'm sure others can speak to this, we have operational support that was needed. So we received funding from the county and were able to hire Milagros as both operations. And what she also does is she provides translation as well as interpretation services. So it's even deeper than translation. And she's in programs for our high school with Kayla on a weekly basis. And they provide that program in 2 languages because a couple of our students recently immigrated from El Salvador and have limited English proficiency. So if you were to come see our high school programs, you would see it in 2 languages, which is pretty neat. And then we have our dedicated grants manager who helps make all the magic happen so that we can still be here. Who we serve. So I figured this would be important numbers for you all. So currently we have 42 children in Annapolis, grades K through 12 into career. We are growing at least to 58 this school year. 100% of our children qualify as free and reduced. 67.5% identify as Hispanic or Latino, and 37.5% identify as Black or African American. What was a staggering number to me when I came on as ED is when we surveyed our Hispanic families, is how many of them needed translation support. And so that did become a huge priority, right? 89% of our families said, yes, we actually could use those services. And I know that's reflective of the dynamic and demographics that we're seeing in our county as well. And so that's something that we will continue to prioritize is limiting language barriers at Seeds for Success. So the communities we serve, Eastport Terrace and Harbor House is where we were founded in 2008. We continue to have a lot of our families still reside in Eastport Terrace at Harbor House, Newtown Drive, Robinwood, and Hispanic communities spread throughout the city of Annapolis. I'm happy to say I have 3 asterisks near Eastport Elementary. These are the schools our children go to. And in particular, we are forging a partnership with Eastport Elementary. And I would say even reinvigorating what has been done in the past years ago before COVID. We will be launching our programs there in the spring. So we are collaborating with them as a community school. They have been incredibly welcoming to us. And so we share kids and we're, hoping to work together to make sure that, again, Seeds for Success is just an extension of what the school does well. And we can increase the opportunity of our kids to engage in that content.
Awesome.
What drives us? I also wanted to name this slide, What Keeps Me Up at Night, but I decided that wasn't necessarily title. I am sure it's also what keeps many of you up at night, right? So I am incredibly grateful for Pam Brown's work on Poverty Amidst Plenty. It sits next to me literally on a daily basis. I refer to it often. And what was striking to me, especially as an early childhood educator, is the low kindergarten readiness in our county. And it has dropped dramatically for our Hispanic and Latino children, and the numbers are just incredibly low. So we want to make sure that as a program, we are impacting kindergarten readiness early. And so I'm happy to share that next year, we plan on adding pre-K4 students to our program for the first time so that we can really start to build foundational skills among children and support that work of pre-K. Additionally, as kids get older, right, it's the numbers continue to be tough, and it's not just representative in our county. This is a national wide issue we're facing, right? Proficiency is dropping across the US. These numbers are prior to COVID. I know we're in a whole different climate post-COVID. And so we're still learning exactly what that means, but we do acknowledge that post-COVID, there's even a higher need in math than reading. Although we still want to support literacy as well. Then there's what keeps us up that we know about, right? The kindergarten readiness to me is that our kids have a gap on the first day of school. And I really want to make sure that we close that as an organization or work towards closing that together in partnership with the school system so that you don't walk into school already facing the opportunity gap. We also know that children in our communities face adverse childhood experiences and trauma. And one thing we're working towards as an organization is as we transport children from programs to home, how do we make sure that we are not also exposing them to some of the violence that's been happening in our community due to the time that some of that is happening in the evenings? That speaks to community violence. Recently, one of our families, their windows were shot out, and that is something real, right? And there are babies in that house. And so that's just, keeps us waking up in the morning, do the work that we do. And then just equitable access to high quality experiences. We know that our families historically, they have financial barriers or transportation, language, they have schedules that, are demanding. And often there can be some housing instability. We face that this year with some of our families who moved between hotel and their housing and back again. And then also really wanting our kids to have access to those college and career pathways that those without barriers also have, right? So we have really built out, we went from a monthly program to a weekly program for our high school children. And I'll go through those a little bit more in depth.
Great.
Additionally, the Maryland Blueprint. So we're trying to align ourselves with the pillars in all the work we do. So we're focusing on early childhood education. We have a real deep thread of college and career readiness starting in 6th grade. And there is a wonderful resource called the Maryland Out of School Time Network. And they have developed a college and career toolkit. And we were trained and we use that. It was developed, I believe, right before or during COVID. So it's very relevant. It's a really great document, which I'd be happy to share these with you.
Yeah, can you repeat the name of that, please, Jen? The Maryland
Out of School Time Network. They call themselves the MOST Network, and it's their college and career readiness toolkit.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. And then also Pillar 4, of course, community schools. It's an opportunity for us to collaborate. We are serving kids in the evenings. You all are schools are serving kids during the day. And how do we make that a wraparound service for our children? And so when I came in, we had programs in place since 2008. We were the Eastport Girls Club, Eastport Boys Club, or I Am a Reader. We also then followed students through middle school and high school and had career and college opportunities in planning and exploration. And then I thought, well, coming from a school system model, right? We know that when we're training volunteers and aligning services to our families, it also makes sense to readjust these so that we can do grade bands, so that we can deepen the resources, the child development milestones, and really meet families and volunteers and kids where they are. So we've moved to a Learn, Dream, Grow, Share program, and we've deeply embedded some pieces that I'll get to in the next slide. So Learn and Dream, these are our grades K through 5 for Learn. This is what Amanda manages. When she came on and she was speaking, she manages that program, and Kayla manages Dream. So you'll see that we've deeply embedded social emotional learning. We know that all kids can use skills in emotion management, empathy, teamwork, responsibility, initiative, and problem solving. I also come from a school setting where I believe in research-based materials. And so what guides our social emotional lessons and planning is the KASL framework, which is an awesome social emotional framework that is also linked to Preparing Children to Thrive standards. And what I find wonderful about those standards is they are for adults and for kids. So what should our volunteers be modeling so that our kids can manage their emotions or show empathy? It's just as important that we hold the adults accountable to demonstrating those skills in a correct way and model the way for them, and also acknowledge when they're still in that learning space as well. And then we are lucky that Second Step, which is the curriculum that AACPS uses, also has an out of school time curriculum for grades K through 5. And so we use that in our Learn program. It's scripted, it's been overhauled, and it's a really wonderful curriculum. We have academic tutoring as a part of both of those programs. So they receive a one-on-one volunteer. They have at least an hour of tutoring a week. And we have purchased and will include the Dibbles reading inventory for our kids so that not during the grade levels that AACPS administers it, because we don't want to overtest kids, but we also want to make sure we are monitoring reading fluency as an organization. And so we'll be using that at the end of this year. We're still getting up and running with that software. And then we make sure that we have college and career readiness starting in grade 6. Career exposure, college tours. I have heard about Naviance. I made a note. We need to look into it again.
I'll help you through it. I'll help you through it. It's
Wonderful. Wonderful.
sit down.
Yes. And so then our high school program now meets weekly at our office, which has been incredible. They're excited. We pick them up from school. They drive in our 10-passenger van. They get here on Thursdays, and they've done a great job of exploring college and career already, pathways. I can send you a survey too. We're looking for experts to come speak about your own personal pathways to career. They've talked about life skills and financial planning. We just had a consultant who also works at AACC come and talk to them about time management. That was last week. And they also they asked to engage in learning around social emotional skills. So that was a fascinating thing where you think, would a high schooler truly want to talk about this? And then when surveyed about what they wanted to learn about and know more about, some of that was social emotional learning. So they identified that, which was pretty fascinating to us. Additionally, in our Learn and Dream, we have our AmeriCorps foster grandparent program. And we, post-COVID, are still working to get all of our foster grandparents in schools. They are income eligible seniors who are provided a tax-free stipend. They need to be 55 and older, and primarily in the city of Annapolis. They are in schools to provide academic support, social emotional support. Really, they develop a plan with the teacher for how to intervene in a way that makes most sense. They do not replace a teacher. They do not replace any staff, but they are just an extra dose of what a child needs. Additionally, we were granted money to support response to COVID. And so we're working with some out of school time or local organizations to place foster grandparents there. A lot of that is in mentoring roles for older youth right now, and then some other early childhood settings. So we're lucky to have that as well. We have 37 very eager foster grandparents. So if you know of other locations, don't hesitate to reach out.
That's awesome.
And so where these programs happen, Learn happens, it actually just finished up. That's why Amanda's not here. At the Eastport Annapolis Neck Library, it will happen at Eastport Elementary School as soon as we finalize our partnership agreement, Wednesdays 4 to 6. And then our Dream program is at the Eastport Annapolis Neck Library last night from 5 to 7. And basically, if you're looking at the school calendar, we're there every day that there's not an early dismissal or a day that's closed. We definitely need volunteers, especially for our Learn program, as we are expanding that this year.
Mhm.
Okay, sorry, let me move my slides over. What I'm also really proud about, and I have 2 students highlighted here, is our GROW program, and these are our post-secondary young adults. Our bottom right, Ms. Taija, just graduated with her counterpart, Shania, who are some of our earliest students in Seeds for Success from UMES. And if you have not gotten to UMES, I highly recommend it. It is a wonderful campus and a wonderful experience for kids. And then there's Lacey, top left, who did a dental certification program through AACC. She was just in her office today working through some next steps for her certification. And we're just really proud of working with kids to find a career pathway that is right for them. Not every child's going to go to college. We know that. And that's okay. And we still have children who do certification programs, alternative paths to career. We currently have a child at Towson, and then we also have one studying abroad in Spain, and we were able to provide her with a scholarship for that. So we're just really proud of our post-secondary young adults, and we hold on to them, even though they're in career, we're still there. It's hard to let go. I'm sure as parents, you all understand that part.
Actually, that's so important to have these students have support in college and certification programs. And the delegate and senatorial scholarships are
Mhm.
also applicable to career training, any courses at AACC that you're taking for certifications. Those scholarships all apply for that as well.
That's wonderful. And our delegates and Senator Elfreth have been very supportive. They're such a great group that came to our office and were really open to listening to our needs. So thank you for reminding me of that, because they're just a wonderful resource as well. I do see a question.
Odessa, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'm so glad to see Lacey. You said that
Oh,
she received what now?
she is she's a dental assistant full-time now. And
Wow.
she is working towards her official certification. So we were looking at how to register her and prepare her for her test.
That's wonderful.
She's driving. She has a car. She's doing a great job. I like literally hugged her 6 times today. And I just, tears, very excited for her. So yes, I'm glad you noticed her picture.
Yeah,
Yes.
I may still have her number, but tell her congratulations from me, from Miss Odessa.
I will.
Okay.
I'm writing that down right now. Yes. She's worked super hard. And for those of you who know her family, there was a major tragedy. So it's even more meaningful that she was able to
Yeah, her
pursue
mother-
that for herself.
Is your mother this past?
She did. She did.
Okay. I do.
Yeah.
And Lacey
So
kept going. That's good. Uh-huh.
she sure did.
Mhm.
And that's
So-
also to the credit of our volunteers, right? We have a village that we have a very committed village that just steps in and wraps themselves around children too, in ways that are appropriate for them, right?
I used to work at Annapolis High, so I remember the program, and the kids really were involved with it. They really enjoyed you all coming there and taking them to your program, to your building.
Well, thank you, Miss Odessa. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
One thing we've also started to work on as an organization is it's really important that our families and our kids, their voice is not just heard, but it is a part of our planning. And so we've created family impact teams and student impact teams this year. And thank you to my program managers who have already set up 3 meetings for the rest of the school year, which is pretty ambitious if you know about corralling people to meet 3 times before the end of the school year. But our hope with that is that they really inform the programs. I always say what you see here that we do now is based on what we know to be true. And as the needs of our community evolve, as you all know, we may pivot in how we support our families. We also do family workshops. We will be doing building out community connection meetings next year, where we're going to try to build space where they have a place to have a support network among themselves, because community really matters. And then we look forward to supporting birth through 4 next year, in addition to pre-K 4. So we have some really great content experts, speech pathologists, clinical psychologists, early childhood educators, and I want to leverage them to provide content for our families, either the ones that are enrolled and their friends as well. Whoop.
Great.
Cindy.
I'm going to call on Laura Booth had a question for you.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that, because we know that those early years are so critical. How are you identifying kids? Like, how are you finding them? I know one of the things that I've seen in our Title I schools is that a lot of times parents seem to materialize almost out of thin air on the first day of kindergarten. Here's my kid, they're ready, to start school, and they miss out on those early childhood resources. How are we getting out in the community, finding the kids and making sure that they're hooked in?
Yep. So I'm really grateful to this question. So Jolyn Davis has also been a great thought partner. And so there's 2 things. One, how do we find out about our kids is we are fortunate to have families in the community that also refer other families. In addition, Eastport is committed to referring families, and they know the eligibility requirements for our program, and they are committed to referring someone who makes sense for our program. How we can get into communities. One thing Jolyn and I were talking about is, how do we make sure our families really know when there's a pre-K 4 program, right? How do we know that they can sign up? And so we have laptops. What I was talking with her about is, give us the information. We have someone who speaks Spanish. Let's get out in the community and help enroll families in those things and in those specific programs, so that they have that opportunity. And they don't. And also what we're talking about is, school enrollment, you have to have your paperwork ready, right? So it's not just, oh, I'm interested in signing up, but once I get that call, I have a limited amount of time to provide documentation, or my space is given to somebody else. So it's also
Right.
preparing them to have that information ready so that when they get that call, they are enrolled.
That's great.
And then we're just lucky to have been in the community that we've built, and we've worked hard since COVID to reestablish connection with our families. One platform, I can't advertise, I'm not sponsored by them, but we've used Easy Text, and it allows you to send out mass text messages or by groups, and we do it in Spanish and English. And we've seen that has really worked for our families. And so, you know how attendance can be. You were talking about it the last meeting, right? But our families are incredibly responsive to us. So when our kids are not there, we know it's something that is out of a child's control. They wish they could be there. And the family members are responsive to us to let us know what's going on.
That's great.
That's great.
Yeah, I'm excited about our little ones next year. I miss the babies. You know, I spent my career there. So I look forward to working with the little guys, and I'm always excited when they come into the office. And I really look forward to us including siblings, the youngest siblings that we know are there. And then we like to engage in fun, right? Our kids deserve those fun opportunities. And this is something I was really proud of last year, is that we provided 113 days of camp for our kids. My staff is so dedicated to finding meals, getting water shoes, preparing the van, driving around. I was even driving the van. I was hesitant to how much I would enjoy that, but there's nothing more special than picking up a group of middle school students who are excited to go to summer camp at 8 a.m. in the morning. It's actually really fun, and they share so much with you in those times. So it's also a relationship building time. Additionally, we do science or STEAM activities. I would like to give a shout out to Jess Packler here, because we also have fun opportunities that are unique and engaging. And this was when the Maiden came to visit. Our girls really loved the Maiden visit, so much so that even our elementary students literally asked where they apply for a job now.
They're sailing. They're gonna sail in the next around the world race.
I
so
saw
we'll have to,
that.
watch them and
Yes, I saw that. And so then the plus is just, we're always looking for more fun things for our kids to do. We don't want it to all just be about an opportunity gap. Yes, there's a gap. Yes, we need to fill it. Yes, we need to get them kindergarten ready. And they deserve all the fun that every child should experience every summer long.
I would say, just to step onto that, you know, those experiences, that fun, that's part of filling that gap, right? I
Yep.
mean, there's a gap in experiential learning, experiential living as well. And, you know, being able to participate in things and being exposed to things where, you know, maybe one of those girls is going to grow up and be a sailor someday and would never have known about it beforehand. It's so important, you know, for engineering, for everything. It's really important.
And you actually, to that point, you may have seen one of our girls in Spin Sheet, Kanaya. She is now a camp counselor with Eastport Yacht Club. And she loves sailing. Now, she says she won't do it as a profession, but she's so good at it. She's very humble. But it is nice to see our children of color embracing all these different opportunities, and they should definitely have more opportunities. So if you think of new things, please bring those our way. Additionally, we are making sure that our kids are exposed to college and universities. This was a fun day at Anne Arundel County Community College. They partnered with us to provide a career day, and they were so wonderful in that it wasn't a generic experience. They took the careers that our kids were interested in through a survey and found professionals who could provide opportunities like that. So what you see here on the left is a silly science experiment session. And on the right, those are our boys navigating a drone camera, not the actual drone because it's way too expensive, but the camera on the drone. But they were so into these experiences, and that just broadens their horizon for what they can do in their college path. We are visiting Marymount University, which is a Hispanic serving institution. We'll be visiting UMES, which is a HBCU, and we're always looking for ambassadors to schools around the area. So if you have a link to any college or university that you believe our kids should visit, please let me know. And we have some ambitious goals this year. We are making up for COVID shutdown, just like everybody else is. Enrollment was low during COVID. It's hard to onboard new kids and build relationships in a virtual environment. And so we are working towards increasing our enrollment primarily in elementary school, grades K through 5, by at least 35% for this school year. And we're definitely on target for doing that. We are also with that, I can't say the word volunteer enough. We need to increase our volunteers by 45% because some of our kids didn't have volunteers due to the lack of volunteer recruitment that could also happen during COVID. So if you know friends, family members, you know where our office is. And if you don't, it's in the Eastport Shopping Center right next to Adams Ribs. And the QR code is all over our windows. If you need to know how to access the volunteer opportunities, it's also on our website.
That's awesome. I didn't know your office was there, so that's
Oh,
great.
yes. Come on by. We're right next door. What's
That's how the
also
maiden thing I remembered to just like, because I live here, right? I was like, oh, I got to tell Seeds for Success about the maiden thing, and like ran over to the shopping center.
yes, and I appreciate that because I had actually watched that documentary and I was having a fan moment. So wow, that's great. And then what's really important to me is that we increase representation among our volunteers. Our kids deserve volunteers who look like them, who have had experiences like them. And so that is an honest growth that we are working towards. We want to increase by at least to 20% of our volunteers identify as Black, Indigenous, people of color. We were at 2% and we've already gotten to 8% this year. So we are very excited. And one of our biggest recruitment pathways is I can't shout out our community college network enough. AACC has a wonderful newsletter and they put out opportunities and they've just been real champions for us. Now, I got the question, what do you need, right? And I'm never shy about asking.
Good.
But priorities to make this all possible, right? How do we continue to grow our programs? How do we continue to serve children in the right ways? I think continued grant funding, thank you to the city of Annapolis. And for anybody who has an ear in the city of Annapolis, any nonprofit is always looking for unrestricted operational funds, right? It's to keep the lights on, keep the momentum going, keep the needs met, and having the ability within a fiscal year to say, okay, I can use this money to provide basic needs scholarships because I just found out that 5 of my families need food. With grants, typically you have to project that project ahead of time and you are within those restrictions. Continue. I know you're big champions of community schools, right? It's a big part of the Maryland Blueprint, and we are incredibly grateful to be working with Eastport. And so just continuing that work, we're excited for what's to come out of that needed component of AACPS. One of the things I've experienced now in the past few months that is a real concern to me is safety and real-time information. I think that's one thing that we've been dropping kids off between 5:30 and 7:30 at night in those windows. And if you look at the recent crime data or the police bulletins, a lot of shootings are happening in that time. And we have no access aside from a few places like Anne Arundel First Alert to actually get real-time data so that we're not driving into a situation or exposing our kids to a situation. And this actually happened to me one evening where I didn't realize that there was someone who had been shot a street over. And I was asking one of our kids to walk from our house by the pool, where if you know that community well, Eastport Terrace, you can't drive up to some of those apartments because they're just tucked back. And so she would have to walk out or I'd have to walk to her. And I didn't know that there was a potential homicide a block over and that she might be exposed to that. And so thinking about what are the ways that organizations like ours can get access to real time what's happening. Schools get lockdowns and police departments share that information with them, but we don't get as much of that information because we are out of school time and we operate at different hours.
Jen, those are awesome points. I'm gonna take a question from Odessa and then Jess.
Great.
Okay, just a quick question, Jen. What do you think about the Maryland Blueprint? Your program is able to fit into the guidelines of the Maryland Blueprint. What do you think about it?
As far as I understand, we are. I mean, we were working on a contract with Eastport Elementary School. I think that the community school initiative, there's those 3 points, right, that really resonate with me. As an early childhood educator, I am happy to see that early childhood is its own initiative in the Blueprint. As an organization that runs on volunteers, it's also easier for us to train volunteers early childhood academic skills than having to fill a gap when we get in middle school. So I think if we can start those skills early and build out more opportunities for quality programs. I also am a part of the Early Childhood Coalition at the county level, and we're talking about that as well. So the Blueprint and the county, all of those are kind of coalescing. And so I do believe in that one. I think the college and career focus, I know, and you can confirm for me, but when I spoke to Jolene, I know Naviance was working its way down into the middle school. And so I was happy to see, and maybe that happened or didn't happen, but I know the thought was there of how do we start career and college readiness earlier? Like, how do we get kids exposed earlier? And then the community school model. I've always said that when I was thinking about, because I was in Anacostia in DC, and we were thinking about like, what is an actual model that would serve a child or any child, right? And it has to be a holistic system. It truly does take a village. Teachers can't do everything all day long. And I remember that some of the after school opportunities were dependent on me as a teacher to sign up for them after a long day where I'm exhausted. And so if there are other organizations that could do it well and a teacher can go home and get some rest so they can get ready for the next day, I appreciate that that's available to many of our schools through the community schools model. They can leverage the other organizations in the community so that teachers can do what they do well and not feel like they have to do every little thing for their kids. I hope that answered your question, Miss Odessa.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you for all what you're doing too. Because I remember those girls that when I was at Annapolis High School, they look forward to seeing you all come over there.
Thank you.
I'm going to go to Jess next, and actually some of Jess's questions about clubs and opportunities and teachers needing to be the ones to commit after a long day were exactly what you're mentioning.
Yeah. And I definitely have made some notes for when we talk about that. First of all, I wanted to thank you as someone who lives on President Street, for your focus on the safety concerns. I'm sure you're aware that Seeds for Success started because of the rash of gunfire that we were having back in 2008. And it seems, like not much has changed in the last, 17 years now, 14 years. I should know that. It's my child's age. But I really wanted to thank you for that. And that, that information, that real-time information, those of us who live here don't get it either. And it's really important. I mean, I provide more information on what's happening generally than to the community through the forum and everything else than I don't know if you're on the eSport forum, but that's,
I am. Thank you. I see that.
And so I would love to talk to you about that. I would love to work with you on that, even as part of the Education Commission, because I was, when you first started talking about it and about my fellow mom at eSport whose windows were shot out recently, I was saying I would almost want to play the recording that I have of the gunfire for people to understand what it sounds like to have that interrupt your evening. When that interrupts, when it's your windows, first of all, when it's somebody, that same apartment had somebody murdered in front of it last year. And those children witnessed that entire thing, and then to have this happen again, but and even just to live in the vicinity and hear that, it throws off your entire everything. The most recent one, when her apartment was hit, I as I was explaining to some of our elected officials, that was, I was walking up the stairs with my kids, putting them to bed after having a family movie night, and you can't go to bed, you can't wake up the next morning and be ready to go to school and be ready to learn when you're living with those kinds of fears. And it is so important that that's addressed. And so, whatever I can do to help, with that, I think, because I don't think we're ever going to be able to close the gap if we can't make sure that people are living and safe. When your primary goal is making sure that you're surviving through the day, you can't focus on things like getting the education or reading to your kids or doing the other things that need to be done in order to get. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. And then I think it's awesome that you're doing the DIBELS testing as well. One of the things we often talk about in the Education Commission is the scores, the great school scores and everything, and how, they don't represent. And it is, I mean, obviously you don't want to overtest kids, but it is so important that we recognize that just because our kids in our Annapolis cluster schools at second grade don't necessarily test on par with with other schools that don't have demographics that look like ours doesn't mean that there isn't learning happening, right? So you take those Dibble scores and you say, okay, well, this kid came into kindergarten with absolutely no English, or, you know, having grown up with parents who didn't finish high school, and now they're reading on grade level by grade 4. They may not have made it there by grade 2. So, okay, we get a 3 in our, you know, school rankings, but by grade 4, those kids are reading, which is way more important than what our great schools rating is, right? Is what actually is happening to those kids in the education in our schools. And, you know, it is so important, and why our teachers are so fantastic, because they're working so hard to do all that. So I just want to thank you. And I really, as an Eastport mom, appreciate what you're doing with our kids and with our community. And, you know, those are my friends and their kids, and they're my kids' friends. And, you know, it's awesome to see what has happened since, you know, Stop the Gunfire turned into Eastport Girls Clubs, and how much you guys are doing. So we are here as an education commission to help you to find the resources. And I hope that you all will continue to come to the meetings, you know, in olden days, pre-COVID, when we were all sitting around the table, you know, we would, oftentimes Seeds for Success was there. And, you know, I hope that you will continue to come and not only just be watching, but be on the panel, so that when questions come up or resources or opportunities or discussions come up, we can all contribute, because that's the only way we're going to be able to move all of us forward and move our kids forward and close that gap.
Yeah, I completely agree. So thank you, Jess. Yes. Yeah. And I think what's also, when I think about the safety piece, you're asking the same kids in that neighborhood to walk to and from school, right? Because they are within the limit for busing. And so when I think about school attendance and there was just a shooting, you know, I know that impacts our kids' attendance at school. Jess?
No, that is one of my, I'm sure you've heard, but that is one of my biggest things, is that for our schools in the city of Annapolis, reducing the radius of our busing, both because of safety, you know, like, not only is Eastport Elementary within walking radius of Eastport, and the same thing with that safety, but Annapolis Middle School. And that's 1.5 miles, you know, for some of the kids that have to walk to Annapolis Middle School each way, 3 miles a day. And so there's safety concerns, there's weather concerns. And if attendance is so important to get to build, closing that gap and to having our kids get the education they need, then transportation to and from school should not be a barrier to their attendance. And right now, at all of the schools that are in the Eastport area, attendance is a barrier. Transportation is a barrier to kids getting to and from school. So I totally agree.
Yes, that's a great point that we might want to bring up to Dr. Bedell. You know, Dr. Bedell's been really great about trying to get some of the rigidity of the 85,000 student district and make it a little more flexible, and not make it so this is the way we've always done it. And I know AACPS was hesitant to like break any precedent or policy about the busing limits, that they would make us walk 1.5 miles for middle school. But that might be something that we as the city of Annapolis need to press harder on and say, hey, one size does not fit all here for this ginormous county. And if you want to close gaps, and if you want to work on attendance, like you say you are, let's see what we need to do in terms of transportation.
And on that,
on
that quick note, I think so, as an organization, as a nonprofit, right, every year we're vulnerable to the funds we can raise. And we're trying to expand our programs, which also means that we need increased transportation. So currently we are working with bus companies to get quotes. That is incredibly expensive, right, for a nonprofit, because it's a minimum of 3 hours, which I totally understand, right? You don't want to send a full bus out somewhere unless you have a 3-hour commitment. At the same rate, for one evening, it's anywhere from $300 to $450 to transport our kids home. And so how do we work together for busing schedules too, as community schools, when our kids are in programs at schools that technically they're working with us, right? but they still need transportation home. And if that's a contract that we could support that lowers the cost for either the nonprofit or we can build into that system, I think that would really make our perk. We don't charge for anything, but we do need to pay. Unfortunately, our volunteers do need to pay for background checks at AACPS, which I know there's thought on how can we make that work. But so those expenses for nonprofits sometimes are barriers for what we can provide. And we're working towards that, like we're applying grants, but any way we could work together to reduce the costs on both sides would be awesome.
Maybe that's something we can jointly discuss, sit down with the director of transportation and come up with, because also at the school level, it's really hard. As you were saying, you were talking about, I don't know if Naviance is the reason they're doing this, but all the 8th graders at Annapolis Middle School in March are going to visit colleges. And so, but that costs money, and the 7th graders are going on a field trip, and the amount for the field trip buses was $3,500. And fortunately, we were able to find an organization to fund those buses for that field trip program. But $3,500 for a school like Annapolis Middle School, it doesn't come out of the school doesn't have the budget for it. So it comes from the PTSA, or they come to the PTSA asking for help. And the PTSA doesn't have the budget for that. And, so it's one of those things. So maybe that's something that we can try to work together on to figure out, we do have a transportation department that does have buses, and, maybe there's something that can be done to make it.
Well, and it's a real credit to the county, because county executive actually, his grant program awarded us, we called it the Transportation Equals Success program. And he did award us $25,000 for a year's worth of transportation. And that's still, you'd be surprised, $25,000 is not, it's like providing meals for kids. You think, oh, it's only $5 per kid per night. And then you do the cost and you think, wow, that exponentially it becomes so much money. But yes, I would love to talk about that. Laura, I see.
Oh, I just wanted to say also on the list for Dr. Bedell is the background checks, because he came and spoke to the county PTA last week about his new Be Present program, where he's trying to encourage volunteers to come into the schools. And again, that $58 fingerprint check. Yeah, that is cost prohibitive to a lot of the people that we're trying to bring in. So that's definitely something I think we should ask him. Janet, I know you're taking notes frantically, but ask him about not just volunteers, not just parent volunteers, but also from organizations like yours. If there was a way that we could get the county to pick those costs up, I understand that it's a lot of money, but in our Title I schools, I mean, people don't have the money to pay for those. And a lot of the people who are volunteering, that's still a big chunk of change. So if we can add that and get those costs covered, then that's $58 that can be used towards something else, towards a bus or a meal or whatever.
Correct.
Laura, great points you brought up. And we're going to follow up with, I'm going to call Ms. Davis about the school systems office for those background checks, and see, like we discussed, if we can get a big background check fair or something to really clear a lot of volunteers at once that we talked about with you, me, and Jess.
Yeah, I was going to tell Jen that too. Yeah.
I've done mine. I've got my blue card.
Well, one of the schools at a different cluster is doing they're doing a remote, is that the right word? I said virtual at the other meeting and I was the wrong one. Remote fingerprinting, where the fingerprinting office is coming to the school.
Wow.
And then anybody can go to that school and get their fingerprints done. And at that one, there still is a cost, but it was all part of the discussion, because Dr. Bedell said that they're going to waive the cost. Because that's another thing, getting down to the Board of Ed on a day when to get the appointment and to get in there to get your fingerprints is also a problem, right? And it's not easy. And especially if you're working in a community, like you were saying, with the grandparents, if they have income or if they have transportation issues, it's not easy, as we've discussed before, to get to the Board of Ed when you live in the city of Annapolis if you don't have a car. And so hopefully we'll be able to set up a remote fingerprinting day here in the city, either at maybe an Annapolis Middle School or some other central location where we can get that done. And because just for anyone who's listening and doesn't know, that you can get a background check, you can get a fingerprint. The fingerprint currently does cost $58, though that cost is going away according to Dr. Bedell. but a fingerprint lasts your entire career at Anne Arundel County Public Schools, and a background check has to be done every 2 years. So just get your fingerprints done because it's for the whole time that you're with.
And laminate your card.
and laminate. Yes. Put
Or
it right
scan it and
against
keep
your-
it on your phone so that you can flash it or email it, which is what I do.
Be done.
Yes.
Jen, that's a good idea that maybe we could join forces with you and Charting Careers and anybody else who like has some volunteers they need to process. And we could all kind of efficiently, maybe they could come to the Eastport Shopping Center and we could, efficiently do something where it's accessible for people to hop on a bus and get there and kind of process as many volunteers to be in your queue as possible.
That would be awesome. And they do, and also just for costs for nonprofits, similar to Erin, I listened to her, we still pay for our own, we still have our own background checks because we don't have access to AACPS and we want to vet volunteers too, right? So they are background checked a couple of times. So the easier, the smaller the barrier to do a second background check, the better to keep a volunteer. And once our volunteers are in, they are committed. I mean, we were just on a session with volunteers who are like, I've been here about 6 or 7 years. And so they stay. It's just that onboarding process, right? And that ease of making sure that they can participate in that.
Is your background check the same as theirs? So if I was cleared by Charting Careers, would that be applicable to your organization as well, or?
No,
So,
because we can't
AACPS
share
is
the privacy, like it's private information, right? So we can't share those records.
Okay.
AACPS is totally separate. Even if you're in Anne Arundel County and you're cleared, you still have to get AACPS clearance. You don't, they don't.
Which I understand, like, great. They are with our kids. They should be highly scrutinized, right? My background check, all of that should happen. But how do we make it just a little bit more seamless for our volunteers?
Well, we will follow up with you on that and see if we can get a date and get the
Awesome.
school system office to help us with that.
Great.
I also
would
wanted
just say
something.
having the background checks just once is a dangerous situation for people who volunteer for over a decade.
So India, was that doing just one check? So just, do they need just fingerprinted once, or does the background every 2 years need to be renewed?
Once you've done the fingerprint, then because it's in that system, the county, from what I understand, the county continuously checks for those fingerprints, right? Like once you're in the fingerprint system, then it can be continuously checked against outstanding things, or if your fingerprints are, if your fingerprints are flagged in something else, right? Then that's what makes it.
Are you sure they check?
Well,
They're
that's what I've been
supposed
told,
to.
but I
We've been
haven't.
told that we've been told whether or not that happens, but there is supposed to be some sort of a notification process. So if you are a fingerprinted volunteer and then, you get arrested for some horrific crime or accusation, that you would be flagged. But whether or not that actually happens is another good question we could ask Dr. Bedell or somebody, whoever in the county is in charge of that, maybe the security office, whoever oversees that.
And then is that communicated to the organizations working in the building too, right? Like us,
Right.
how is that? We do every 3 years, a full criminal history, to keep our volunteers, active in their background checks.
Great. Okay. So I'm going to let Jen continue, but I'm going to ask that she would you be able to distribute this slideshow to
Sure.
us? I could send
Absolutely.
out
Yep.
to have for their perusal and to share.
Absolutely. And I only had 2 more bullets. So we were right near the end anyway. So things that I could always use, right? I think as a city, it's a missed opportunity not to have a volunteer fair as a city for all these organizations that, right? If we're trying to pool volunteers, Charting Careers needs them, STARE needs them, we need them, everybody needs volunteers. There's not a place where, even sponsored by the city or AACPS, where we can have a volunteer fair for the organizations that work with community schools or all of our other schools. And then just continuing thinking about, is there a way to hold roundtables with the nonprofits that are doing the work? So we have collaboratives that we definitely talk to with each other as nonprofits, but as like a city, how do we come together, nonprofits, school system, politicians, those who make legislative decisions? How do we come together as a group in a way that's positive and here's perspectives from nonprofits and the other stakeholders?
That's an excellent idea. I really like that.
So that was the end. I had a Q&A slide, but I don't think we need it. I just really appreciate this opportunity this evening. I was incredibly excited. I had to put a word in my previous training of what would describe my day, and it was excited to be able to share all of this information. And so I do look forward to coming back and being a part of another meeting in the future or more.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate the huge depth of experience you bring into this position prior to coming here. So that is hugely helpful and influential. And I know a number of members might want to follow up with you. I will send them all your contact info.
Perfect.
I know I want to follow up with you.
Awesome. Yeah, I would love to talk about all of that. My time in DC, I value it so much. And so it's been a good learning experience, and I'm happy to bring all of that here. So thank you.
Awesome.
You work with Melissa Kim in DC?
Yes.
She and I we were friends from college. She's awesome.
Well, and at Annapolis Middle School, Miss Colleen Murphy, I just saw her in Target. We were KIPP colleagues, and I didn't realize that she's working at the middle school.
Oh,
and
she's awesome. She's fantastic.
I've literally known her since she had her first baby. And I thought, well, our worlds just completely collided. So KIPP is, our colleagues are coming this way too. So
Right.
and that's another thing I want to thank everybody to being advocates for is salary increase for our teachers, because I do have many colleagues, and I was one of them, that commuted from the county to DC for over a decade because the pay difference was so drastic that I wasn't going to sacrifice otherwise. So I'm excited to hear the momentum behind salaries and compensation for teachers.
Yeah, we'll keep that momentum up with the budget comments at aacounty.org. That's where you send in all your budget comments at aacounty.org is for all of us to send in support for education funding within the county executive and county council approved budgets.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yes. Awesome. Well, we're at 7:30, and I wanted to give Jess a quick chance just to talk about the great questions that she raised with our regional assistant superintendent regarding opportunities. Do our students have equal opportunities, or what kind of opportunities do we have in the clubs and after school, before school growth and exposure?
Sorry, I was muted. And also I want to apologize for being late today. It's been one of those Wednesdays. So I had reached out to Jolynn about clubs and field trips and extracurricular and co-curricular opportunities. And because I hear different things depending on different schools. I have kids now in 3 different schools, and they have friends from 25 different schools, and then I'm on different various platforms and talking to people, and it seems like there's a lot of discontinuity between what's happening at some schools and what's happening at other schools. And I think we all know that, right? The schools that are better funded in terms of PTAs are always going to be more able to provide things for their students than schools that don't have PTAs or that have lesser funded PTAs, because PTAs and or PTOs or whatever the parent organization is often funds a lot of the things like transportation. So I just wanted to kind of get an idea of what was mandatory and what the school system funded, etc. So in terms of field trips, I asked, and I just wanted everyone, so everyone's aware, every school student at kindergarten, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade participates in environmental literacy programming. Kindergarten, its trees are terrific. 5th grade, it is drown proofing. 6th grade, it's Chesapeake Bay Connections, and 4th grade, of course, is Arlington Echo. But even in Arlington Echo, there is a
Jess, can I just pause you for a second? I'm going to send what Jess is describing here, I'm going to send this email out to the entire commission so that you have the background of what she is talking about. So
Right.
in case you
So,
can't get it all down.
yeah, yeah, right. So you don't have to take notes. And also I talk
Yeah.
too fast.
Yeah.
So Arlington Echo, even with that, there is some disparity because you have the option as in 4th grade for a 1-day or a 2-day, which includes an overnight at Arlington Echo program. But in order to do the overnight program, you have to have, first of all, staff that are willing to do it, and staff are not paid. So if your teacher says yes, they will be there and support the overnight programming, they don't get paid for that. So that's a problem, because, you know, we're asking teachers to spend a night away from their family and away from their homes with our kids, and there's no compensation for that. But then you also have to have volunteers. So if you're a school that doesn't have, you know, any way to come up with a way to fund or support the teacher that's staying, but also you're a school with a low volunteer rate, generally your kids will only get to do the 1-day program. And the 1-day program is awesome. Arlington Echo is the best thing ever. Everybody should go and volunteer for Arlington Echo, even if you don't have kids in 4th grade. I've been doing it since kindergarten because somebody roped me in then, since my oldest was in kindergarten, and I go every year regardless of whether I have kids there, and it's the best. So do it. But it's hard to get volunteers, which is why I've been doing it every year since 11 years ago. And so if you don't have volunteers, then the kids do the 1-day program. And particularly for those schools where there isn't the funding and there isn't the volunteerism, those tend to be the schools where the kids would be most benefited by an overnight at Arlington Echo, because they're the kids who are least likely to be able to go to summer camp or to have some sort of overnight program. So, you know, right there, just even in the required programs, there's already a disparity. There's no attendance fees for any of the mandatory field trips, except for the food for Arlington Echo. Students who qualify for free and reduced price meals receive a free or reduced price meal at Arlington Echo, but otherwise, that food has to be paid for at that field trip. Transportation for the environmental literacy trips falls under the environmental literacy and outdoor education office's budget, which I think means that it's paid for. I know in the past we used to have to pay for the buses for drown proofing. That was not my experience this year for 5th grade. So I'm hoping that now that, from what Jolynn said, and I need to follow up on that, that is not true. And that all of at least the required programming, there is no cost apparently other than the Arlington Echo food, which is something to discuss as well. And then, so in terms of non-mandatory field trips, at each grade level, and I asked whether that was encouraged or whether it's school specific. The school system values field trips that are tied directly to a student's instructional experiences. The approval of non-mandatory field trips are the decision of the individual school. And there are processes that are outlined by the school system. And schools do not have a budget for those field trips. Portions of the field trips are often funded using fundraisers, community partners, and donations, PTA support, and requirements of parents for payment. Businesses and field trip locations sometimes offer free and reduced admission for Title I schools. Title I funded school budgets are developed using a PPA formula, and schools then develop a needs-based plan and budget. These budgets can include, but do not have to include, field trip admissions and transportation. Schools go to great lengths to ensure a student doesn't miss out on a trip if they're not able to afford it, and appreciates community supports for funding, which is great. However, again, when you're talking about the schools in the Annapolis cluster, we're not getting field trips. We are not getting field trips on the same level that other schools in the school system that have better funded PTAs, that have better funded communities. You know, when you have a school that is 75% free and reduced meals, there isn't extra money available for families to be able to support those things. And it's also one of the reasons that fundraising and outside fundraising is so important, you know, such as the parking that everybody, you know, that Germantown and Eastport do for the boat show and for the football field, for the football games. Those types of fundraisers are so important to schools in our cluster because we can't raise the money. We can't sell a bunch of Joe Corby's pizzas to our families and then go on a field trip. It's not a functional way of fundraising in most of the Annapolis cluster schools. And so fundraisers where we are supporting the community by giving a service and they are supporting us by donating funds, such as parking, are really important. And so, it really helps when the school system is able to support those things. Everybody who's been here for a long time knows that, the parking lot in downtown Annapolis used to be run by various schools within the community. Annapolis High School had booster clubs that ran the parking lots on various weekends. That was taken over, and the majority of the parking in there now is a for-profit organization that runs the parking lot, and there is a percentage that's given back to the school system. But again, that's not the same as the money going to the PTA so that they can then support the schools with these things that are not funded by the school system. So, so that was,
Yes, I'm going to have you pause for just 1 second for, I think Odessa has a question for you.
Yep.
Yes, Jess. Earlier, is Jamie still there? Jamie?
She's there.
Jamie, I was going to commend you anyway, at the, later on in the meeting about you all taking the kids to DC to the African American Museum. But you also mentioned that communities in school funded that trip. What you said, that communities in schools funded the trip for you all?
Yes, community schools is what paid for that trip to the African American History Museum on a weekend. So that was part of the community schools.
Right. So
did that.
Okay, well, I commend you. Is there a coordinator there at Germantown, someone that's working with the community school?
Our community schools is his name is Trayvon James.
Okay.
So he is the community schools leader at Germantown.
Okay, because Jess is saying that they need funds, so can't that
Jess,
be?
are you guys a community school now or no? Not yet.
Yeah, and each of these schools are community schools in the Annapolis cluster, but how the money, so they can be used for field trips, and I think I have to confirm whether one has been done for Eastport, but the money for community schools also goes to support other things like clubs and teachers. Like there's a lot that community schools goes to fund. I think that field trip is awesome. And IB sometimes can be used, obviously IB, because you're IB as well.
And I do know, Jess, that there are like specific rules to the community schools funding. They can't fund, I don't even know if they can fund only a certain percentage maybe of regular school field trips. I don't think that is even, I think it has to be a community event that's open up to, if it's going to be something like a field trip, it's mostly done through like an outside source. That's why it's on a weekday, a weekend instead of a weekday. It's not a regular school field trip. It definitely, the money has to be spent very strategically, I think.
Yes, you're exactly right. So it's not like going to, the Baltimore Industry of Science, right? Or Museum of Industry and Science, or, to the Art Museum, right? Unless it's through the community schools. Right, exactly. And it's not during the school day, which means that only those who have family, and usually, at least with the ones that we've done, if it's a community school, a parent has to be able to attend.
Yes.
Right. And so there's all these different things. It's different.
There's a lot of rules for sure.
Right. It's different than your regular field trip that you might think of as a regular field trip.
Right.
So,
now, I think that community schools would be maybe able to like help pay for like chaperones if they, you know what I mean? Like that kind of little stuff, but it wouldn't be able, I'm not sure if the specifics on being able to fund an entire field trip.
And that's a good point. Those are questions that I can ask as well to follow up on this. All right. And then does anyone else have any questions on what I talked about so far?
I just wanted to welcome Mr. Baron Jamal to the discussion. I just saw his name in there. So if you have any ideas or input, pop your hand up and we'd happy to have your discussion in there also, or any other commissioners.
Yes, I'm just listening. Thank you. Ms. Odessa reminded me of the meeting today. So
that's great.
Thank you.
And I'll have her send me your email so I can make sure you're on the invitation list.
yes, thank you.
And then the next question I have, because we often think about field trips as an elementary school thing, but they're also important in middle school and older. And so our, Annapolis Middle School is IB for All. So it's the whole school is a magnet program. At Bates, there is they have the PV or the Apex program, which is a portion of the school, and then it's Arts for All. So I asked about that, and the answer was field experiences are the expectation of many programs of choice, such as Magnet, Signature, and AVID, to ensure application of college and career readiness, foundational standards, and skills. These can include job shadowing, mentoring, career seminars, performances, and professionally focused field experiences, which occur monthly in the programs. In addition to school day field experiences, Apex Arts students have required extended day programming, and middle school STEM program includes mandatory Saturday field activities throughout the year. If an event or experience is required, then the transportation is provided by the program. In STEM and BMAH, which is the Biomedical Applied Health, right? I think that's what BMAH is the right acronym for. Students are required to meet a set number of field experiences, STEM and Summer Bridge. Grades 6 through 8 have to have 4 to 6 STEM Saturdays and 1 field experience each year, as well as Summer Bridge. Grade 9 has 6 field experiences in Summer Bridge. Everyone does Summer Bridge except for grade 12. Grade 10 has 4 field experiences. Grade 11 has 2 field experiences, and then grade 12 has an internship. In Apex Arts, they're required to attend professional arts experiences, which are PAEs, Apex Plus after school, and Summer Bridge. Grades 6 through 8 have to attend 4 PAEs every year, Aplex Plus every Wednesday, and Summer Bridge. And grades 9 through 11 must successfully complete a minimum of 45 hours of Apex Plus and do Summer Bridge, as well as 2 PAEs every year. What I found interesting is that in IB, there are no specific trips or experience requirements. Field trips are a complement to the course curricula. And if the trip is sponsored by the IB program, transportation is provided by the school program. But I see that as a disparity when you have Annapolis Middle School, which is this great IB for All program, and but there's nothing required, and therefore means nothing automatically funded, where the STEM and the Apex programs are getting these multiple trips every year and these multiple field trips every year that are funded. And again, then the school system is, then the school is coming to the community at large saying, please help us. How can we make that more equitable so that all of our students are getting the experiences? And obviously, I'm speaking just about the Annapolis cluster right now, but these programs are in different clusters, and the
In the past, the IB office would pay for some of the field trips for the middle school level for IB, arts going into DC for language and other things. I don't know if that's still happening.
So I think that's what they were saying, is that the IB can do that if they have the space within their budget to do that. But that's a difference than saying you have to do 4 professional arts experiences, which, some of our parents on here's kids are in Apex, and they can speak to what those experiences have been this year, and it's a disparity. It's great that IB can fund it, but it's a problem that there isn't a requirement to do something that at least puts them on the same level in getting an IB type of experience.
And just to tag onto that, it also, like your general population, like at Bates, if you're in the Apex program, as my daughter is, it's supposed to be 4, we're getting 2 PAEs. Last year we got 1. I guess because of COVID and all, they were a little slow with some of those things. But this year we got 1 in the spring and 1 in the fall, and it is some kind of artistic, you go to a play or something, or a symphony or something, but it's outside of school hours. But the kids that are in the regular general population at Bates, again, those are mostly the kids that are coming in there from our schools that are not that are often our Title I populations are not getting field trips there as well. So yeah, if you're not in a magnet program, it's nice that the magnet programs offer additional things. And to be fair, there are additional requirements, like the after school program is graded. So like you have the extra after school classes for Apex, and that is actually another class. You're getting an extra class added onto your schedule that is graded in addition to your regular number of core courses that you would have. So some of those come with them, sort of the, more work as well as the benefit. But yeah, most of our kids that are in the general populations that are not in any magnet programs are not getting the same opportunities.
And I will say the teachers.
Just before we got to wrap up soon because it's 7:46. And I wanted to mention the summer camp opportunities, so that the county has opened their, summer camps, that are AACPS has opened their summer camp opportunities that is going to be located in our cluster at Rolling Knolls. And we mentioned the, problematic transportation. I know a lot of families who have to send their kids in a taxi to get to and from their, one has sent their kids in a taxi to get to the all county chorus practices up in Glen Burnie. And so we would want the AACPS in the Annapolis cluster to be slightly more accessible, either by bus line or cheaper taxi, to the nearby schools rather than on one of our geographically outlier schools, like Rolling Knolls. So we'll be following up with AACPS on that.
Right. Can I just finish what I just the finish? So what I was going to say is that, first of all, I wanted to say that at the teachers I know at Annapolis Middle School, and I can't speak to Bates, but have worked really hard this year to find a way. Like I was saying, the 8th grade kids are all going to go to visit colleges and do a college trip in March, and the 7th grade just did a big field trip. And so the teachers are working hard, but again, the funding has to come from outside. So that's something that I think that we as a commission maybe can look at, see how we can work within the community and do that. And then the other part of that, and this was touched a little bit on when Jen was talking, is the club. So these are all the co-curricular programs that can be offered in a school. These are all opportunities that are offered, and they're offered in a lot of schools, but they require support from either the school. And as Jen was saying, it's really hard when you have teachers who have taught all day, then to require them to come in and then also teach a club afterwards. But I wanted to put this up here, and we can discuss this the next meeting as well, just to see what the opportunities are that are out there. There's some really amazing clubs that again, when we talk about experiential learning and experiential living, can really be helpful. And these are supported by AACPS, but they're not available in a lot of our schools because of funding and staffing. And so, that's something that we really need to look at, how to make this more accessible in our Title I schools in particular.
Yep. So I sent this this slide around in the email with everybody with the draft agenda and draft minutes. So you can take a look at this. It's also been loaded on our city website. But things like the stock market game, if it's on there, like how do we get everybody in an equal playing field of understanding, building wealth in our society, or understanding these concepts,
right.
And not just having them at our more wealthy suburban schools.
And reaching out to the community to find people who might be interested, because one of the sort of fallacies that is sometimes spread is that there has to be a teacher teaching each one of these things. And Jen spoke to it a little bit. That's not true. There has to be a teacher. There has to be a staff member on campus, right? There has to be somebody in the building. But if Janet, if you wanted to go in and run a chess club, and you've done your you've done your background, your fingerprinting, you could do that, so how do we reach out to the community and find out, who might be interested in helping doing sea perch underwater robotics at Georgetown East, or, so that we're not asking teachers to do it, and then we're just asking one staff member to be on site as opposed to 7 staff members. And community schools can help with the funding of these as well. Clubs is a big part of community schools, but it all comes down to staffing as well. So.
Okay. I will try and make that a larger exposure ask to the city and to the community, and maybe get that volunteer fair idea going and things. So we're going to, we've got to wrap up shortly. I want to ask if there, I do want to mention what happened today at Annapolis High. The entire 12th grade of Annapolis High, which is now like 450 students or so, went through a financial literacy fair. And that was, supported by community members staffing booths where each kid, learned about a budget. Okay, you are a single parent with this, and here's your car payment, and you are different jobs. So I want to shout out to the high school and all the people from our community that parole Rotary folks, other folks that really helped staff those booths so that every 12th grader could go through that. I know my kids graduated without knowing a functional difference between a debit card and a credit card. So all these things are super important. And I wanted to see if there was any new business that needs to be raised. I did want to mention the courtyard cleanup that's happening at Annapolis Middle on March 18th, and getting our outdoor spaces spruced up. I planted that courtyard at Annapolis Middle many years ago with the assistance of the kids and the science teachers. So I'll try and be there for the sprucing, but that's like 9 to 12 in the morning, and we'll send that around. And I know Rachel sent me information about the Mids for Kids program, where the midshipmen from the Naval Academy are coming into our elementary schools in like 5 or 6 of the elementary schools, I believe.
I saw a mid at school yesterday, Rachel, and I was so excited to see a mid back in the school. It is.
Oh, good. Yeah.
It's
They
such
said
a
that
great-
it's,
I was like, yes.
yep. I think it's kind of back in full swing this semester finally.
Rachel, do you know if any teachers have signed up for the STEM teaching experience that's happening?
So no, I don't know. So that I guess is sponsored by the Naval Academy sort of association. It's a little bit outside of the academy itself.
Okay.
But I'll let you know if I hear anything about that. Sounds like a great event.
Yeah, I hope so. So is there any, Enid has some new business. Enid has her hand.
Yes, I just wanted to see if it would be possible, new business, if we could invite, I understand we have a new director of recreation parks.
Mhm.
And I know that in the past we've had, visits and meetings, invited them to the meeting, and I would love to see the new director be invited to one of our meetings, later in the year.
That is a great idea.
And number 2, I'm sorry, Janet, how do we get the questions for Dr. Bedell to you? What was that process again?
Sure. I'll send out an email to you from the Annapolis Education Commission @gmail.com email address. And I will invite questions, or, you can send anything to that. If you just have it and you want to ship it off before I do that, just send it right to the Annapolis Education Commission @gmail.com address. And I will compile those and provide him some of those in advance.
So we will see those before the meeting.
So, yes.
Okay.
So I'll be sending them to him, as many as we have before the meeting, so that he knows what we want to ask about.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Pam has a question, and then Laura.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And this actually goes under the unfinished business from many meetings ago when we met with Mr. Trainer. And then subsequent to that meeting, because he had said that it would be no problem in switching the way that they operate the registration for the daycare and that sort of thing for interest in it, but that didn't happen. So then we were going to follow up with him to see how that was going. Was there ever any follow-up, and is that still a real issue?
There was not, and now you've put it back on my radar that I will contact him, because a lot of times she's talking about the city Recreation Department runs the childcare at the individual elementary schools within the cluster. And a lot of times those start opening up in April for the following school year. So we want to make sure there's some sort of equitable and more accessible system of signing kids up.
So currently, depending on the program, you can sign up online, depending on the program, and I'm not sure if childcare is one of those programs, but you can only sign up online if you already have an account within the system. If you don't have an account within the system, you have to go into ARPD during business hours and sign up there. I'm hoping that with the new leadership in the rec department, that's something that can be rectified. I know it's something that our sister board, the RAB, has been working on, but it is definitely a major
Recreation
issue.
Advisory Board. Jess, do you know can one establish their account, their original account online, or does
No, you have to establish your account in person
person.
during business hours at the rec center.
Okay.
And then and again, only some, like I couldn't sign my kids up for soccer online, but I could sign them up for something else that we did online. So it's only some of the programs. And so anyway, I know that Andrew Patterson, who is the new athletics director, this is one of his big things, is really making it as easy as possible for kids to sign up, which should be new business. Baseball is back. So actually we are once again trying to get baseball in all of our schools, perhaps through the community schools program. So maybe Jamie, I'd love to talk to you about Germantown and anybody at some of the other elementary schools about getting Annapolis baseball, because it's back and it's very exciting. But anyway, Andrew Patterson is trying to get that going and to make it easier for people to sign up, but it is not there yet.
Okay, great. Pam, did that answer your question so far? Yes, thank you for bringing that up. And I'm sorry it's fallen off with the other things going on. Laura, you have a question?
Oops, not a question. But Baron, I wanted to find out if you had heard about Dr. Bedell's new Be Present program that he's launched.
Yes, I did hear about that program. And I had communicated with him twice about that, and perhaps I'll have a chance to chat with him more on Friday. He's going to be at Annapolis High School with the Black Student Union. And also last Thursday, I spoke with Ms. Joanna Tobin about the program a bit more. So we're excited about that, but the hard work is still finding enough people now to volunteer and into the schools. I don't know how many of you listened to the press conference, but at the end, I believe it was a media person had a question about, I think it was parents maybe who are uncomfortable with strange people, hanging around in the hallways or something to that effect with the children. So that's one of the things in my volunteer group. We had our own extensive training, so we would be prepared to really deal with the young scholars in the school. But that's what I want to talk with Dr. Bedell and Ms. Tobin about further, is in what way are they looking for the volunteers to assist the administration with issues in the classroom. And I want to emphasize to Dr. Bedell in the school system with our program in particular, we're not in the hallways to be, disciplinarians or anything like that. We just want to support, administration when administration needs support. This is pretty much our program. But it has to be understood that we're working with the administration. We just can't be in the hallways smiling when children are, walking in the hallways and not, going to class. The few that do that, 40, maybe 50, that's a few, but it's still a lot. So yes, I did. Thank you.
Great. Well, the one thing that I was excited about when he talked to the county PTA last week was that he did say several times that all of the background checks would be cut for the Be Present program would be covered by the school system. And I think that's something that would also maybe help assuage some of the concerns, about having quote unquote strange people in the building, but having people who have been background checks, I think would probably alleviate some of the concerns. They're not just people walking in off of the street, without who haven't been vetted. So I was excited about that. And I wanted to make sure that you had heard that as well, and to find out how you can get your group in that pipeline to get the background checks done.
Yeah, so actually our group was already in the pop line with Dr. Gillens earlier with Men and Women for Domestic Peace, but we had to suspend the program for a while because it still wasn't clear at that time, how we would engage. So Dr. Bedell, I heard, and I talked to again Mrs. Tobin about that this month. In a few days, they're going to come up with a standard rules of operation, for lack of a better word, in exactly how volunteers would address or assist the administration, particularly in reporting incidents in the hallways. One of the things that we had a little confusion with was volunteers asking students for their hall passes. Somebody said it was okay. Then Dr. Gillens had some concerns about that. But as we said to Dr. Gillens, many of us are not only alums of Annapolis High School, but our volunteers had grandchildren in the school. We had an uncle with us. So, we know how to, talk to children. But the main thing is that we cannot be in the hall. If we're going to support the administration, we need to know if a child, if a student is authorized to be in the hallway or not. And so if we assume that they're not, and they are, then that sends a wrong, message about, profiling and that type of thing. So that's what we still need to determine. What do we say to students who are loitering in the hallway, and everybody's comfortable with that.
Great. And at the Annapolis High PTSA meeting last night, they had a presentation from Mr. Sims, who is one of the 6 student advocates at Annapolis High, and kind of beloved by many, many years of Annapolis High graduates. I know my kids included. And he talked about just being that positive, accountable presence, getting to know the kids' names and how you doing, and taking an interest in okay, things are going, time to move into class, and the way he does that so effectively at our school, and the other advocates do that so effectively at our school to really.
We learned a lot. Yeah, we learned a lot from Mr. Sims when we were in the school. But again, the issue is when after the bell has rung and we see students still doing the same thing at that particular point in time, we can't be positive role models when we're just chatting with students who are, breaking the regulations and loitering in the hallway. So that's it's not between the bell, it's after the bell is where we're anxious to hear, exactly what the administration would like to do.
Sure. Thank you. Okay. So it is 8:04. Pam, is your hand? Okay, yours has been taken care of. I am going to thank you for the past hours of discussion, and thank you for being present with us this whole time. We will be following up. I will be sending Seeds for Success presentation to you through through email, and any other resource that you want me to distribute, just let me know. But otherwise, I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting from anyone who would like to make it.
I make a motion that the meeting be adjourned.
Excellent.
I'll second.
Seconded by Laura. All right. Thank you all for your contribution.